Hey, what's up guys, it's SpenBonk, and welcome back to the 43rd Slimekeep devlog. In this devlog, I tweaked a few things and added some new weapons and upgrades to the game. Also, if you're new here, Slimekeep is a fast-paced roguelike where you must kill and capture slimes to stop the corruption that has infected your land. Without further ado, let's get into it. So the first thing I worked on for this devlog was music implementation. By now, all the composers for Slimekeep had finished all these songs in the game, and although I had implemented most of them into the game, I still had a few interesting scenarios to work on. For example, for the start screen in the game, my composers came up with the unique idea where each of them would create their own version of the song, which would randomly play upon starting the game. So I set this up, and now here is a quick mix of all the different start screen variations together. So yeah, that's the start screen themes right there, and I hope you like them. But another kind of weird music implementation task I had to work on was for the opening cutscene in the game. My composer Lydiac decided to create multiple short loops for each section of the panels in the cutscene. The idea here is that the music would slowly become more corrupted in a natural way as the cutscene progresses. So here is my music implementation of that. And this was not bad, but as you heard, when transitioning between loops, I opted for just a simple fade. Though Lydiac had the idea for more natural sounding transitions by completely finishing the current song loop being played before transitioning to the next one. So I hopped into Unity, kind of hacked away at things for a bit, and ended up with this. So now the music transitions a lot more fluidly between panels. I honestly think this sounds awesome, and I love the dynamic music here from Lydiac, so huge thanks to him. But moving on, by this point I felt like I made enough progress since the last beta build of Slimekeep, so I released a new beta to my beta testers for their feedback. And as usual, feedback is what they delivered, and a lot of it. Like seriously, when I say a lot, I'm talking about non-stop bug after bug report, which was pretty demoralizing. So as per usual at this point, I updated my Trello board with so many bugs to fix and got to work. And if I'm being honest, I kinda just went head under for the next few weeks trying my best to fix bug after bug. Now, I could have easily documented this process, but I think I've already made so many videos already where I just fix bugs the whole time, so I didn't want this to be the case again. Although, all these bugs probably could have made for their own devlog. So yeah, just know that I'm not clear from bug fixing, and even as I record this video, there's still so many bugs left in the game somehow, to the point where I feel like I'm just putting a band-aid on a wound that never seems to heal. But that's just game development for you, and regardless, I did record a few of the non-bug changes that I made, so here we go. First, I got some complaints that in some cases the crosshair in the game was just hard to see. So in the settings menu, I added this crosshair outline checkbox, which simply adds a yellow outline to the player's current crosshair, which I think can help a lot depending on the player's preference and if they want to use it. Next, I added these damage pop-up indicators once a slime is damaged to kind of convey how much damage each weapon or attack does to the slimes. I also think this just kind of made combat look a lot more satisfying overall, so let me know what you think. Moving on, I've consistently gotten feedback about the tutorial in the game and how it's just kind of eh. And while I didn't really feel like doing a complete rework, I did decide to make it a bit more guided with these pathways and arrows that direct the player around the map. So now the player can opt in for a guided experience, or just move around at their ease, which I think is nice. But I also think it'd be nice if you checked out the sponsor of this video, Boot.dev. Boot.dev is an online platform aimed at getting you a career in backend development. In their course, you learn the fundamentals of backend development from start to finish using the Python and Go programming languages. Through their hands-on lessons, students are prepared to tackle technical interviews and forge a successful programming career. But what makes Boot.dev unique is their RPG-like learning experience, which uses modern game design to push students towards their goals and keep them engaged throughout. Students can earn XP, levels, achievements, and complete quests to get on the top spots on the global leaderboard. They also have an active Discord community to help you out if you ever get stuck. So what are you waiting for? According to a Stack Overflow survey, the median salary for backend developers in the US in 2020 was over $100,000, and backend developers often have the choice to work remotely or from home. So to get started with Boot.dev, click the link in the description box and use my code BENBONK to get 25% off your first payment. Thanks to Boot.dev for sponsoring this video. Next, I got some feedback that the Sliminator panel, or the area where the player can purchase upgrades for their pet, was a bit plain and just not that visually appealing. And Lydiac in my Discord server, who actually happens to be one of the composers for Slimekeep, created this really cool updated Sliminator art. So I took this art, threw it in an Aseprite, and just made a few slight edits. Then it was time to set this all up in game. I started by just adding in all the art, which immediately made the panel look so much better. Then I set up the darkened areas for the upgrades that the player couldn't purchase yet, and added in these covers for when the player hovers over a specific currency type. But I wasn't done there, as Lydiac had an idea to increase the usability of this panel by adding in these little brackets, kind of directing the player to which upgrades they could buy, which I think helped the whole panel a lot and made it a bit more dynamic. Also, for this big upgrade at the top, once the player purchases these 2 high-level upgrades, they can hover over this upgrade and it'll animate up and down, which I think is a nice touch. And finally, the last change I made for now was to Billy's Bar/Tavern. Based on player feedback, I opted to remove the UI and player's weapon once the player enters the inside area to make things feel a bit more natural. Also, as a bit of polish, I added in these cinematic bars when the player talks to an NPC to make things look, well, a bit more cinematic. But now, as the development of Slimekeep is ever so getting closer to release, I asked my playtesters what they thought the game needed, and one of the things they mentioned is more weapons/upgrades in the game. So I got to work, first on a bunch of new weapons. But first, I decided to ask my Discord server, link in the description if you want to join, if they had any ideas or art concepts for new weapons to add. And one member had the idea for an upgrade which can only be gained if you wishlist Slimekeep on Steam. He said it would really help out with promoting Slimekeep once it releases and only takes a few clicks to do so. So he recommended all of you should click the link in the description to do so. Anyways, for real, one member of my Discord, Crimson Art, made this corn weapon that I thought looked really cool, so I planned on adding that, and I made this simple popcorn sort of animation as the projectile. Then I made this snowball launcher, which I planned for it to shoot snowballs that could freeze/slow down enemies. I also made a syringe which could poison enemies, along with this goop-like projectile, and a slime head weapon which I called Jerry, who could shoot out these slime ball projectiles. Then Execute Baja in my Discord made this grapple hook weapon, which I converted into a sort of nail gun with this nail projectile. And finally, MiG60012 made this cool weapon concept, which I edited slightly along with a few projectile variants. Equipped Hats in my Discord made this super interesting concept for a weapon called Slip22, and I made a recolored pistol called the Super Pistol. Now to actually add these weapons, first we had the Corn Gun. As you can see, this weapon just shoots out these kernels that eventually pop into popcorn in a pretty satisfying way. Now, these corn kernels aren't too powerful in themselves and only do around 1 damage. But the real power of this weapon comes in the popcorn, which does 2 damage and can be really good at killing clusters of enemies as it has a small AoE radius. Overall, I think this weapon turned out great and it's just really fun to use in general. But next, we had the Snowball Launcher. As you can see, this weapon just shoots out pretty standard snowballs. Like the popcorn kernels, they also do very little damage, but have the cool effect of freezing enemies, which slows them down quite a bit. And the counterpart to this weapon is the Syringe, which shoots out poison goop that poisons enemies. Again, this weapon does pretty little damage initially, but that poison effect can really add up, which I think makes this weapon pretty cool to use. Moving on, we had Jerry. Now, there really isn't anything too special about Jerry, except for the fact that I'm questioning how this weapon came to existence in Slimetopia. But regardless, Jerry is just a really solid DPS weapon that fires medium damage projectiles. Next, we had the Nail Gun, which shoots piercing nails that can go through enemies and walls. It does pretty good damage and is just a really solid room clear option for the player. Then we have the Super Pistol, which is basically like the normal starter pistol, except it uses ammo. But to make up for this, the Super Pistol does 2 damage instead of 1 and has a faster fire rate than the normal pistol, making it a decent option for the player to pick up. Next, we have what I call the Big Boy. This weapon has 3 shots in its magazine, and the unique thing is that each of these shots grow and do more damage. So the first shot is this small projectile, which does 2 damage, the second shot is this medium projectile, which does 4 damage, and the third shot is this large projectile, which does 6 damage. Overall, this is again just a pretty solid weapon and DPS dealer. Now, second to last, we have the Bagel weapon. This weapon randomly shoots out either bacon, egg, or cheese as a projectile, and yeah, don't question it. Each of these elements have different projectile speeds and damages, which I think makes this weapon kind of fun to use, especially if you love bacon, egg, and cheeses like I do. And finally, get ready because we have quite possibly the most powerful weapon in Slimekeep history, Slip 22. This weapon has 999 ammo and a 2 out of 3 chance of failing to fire. But once it does fire, it shoots out this blazing fast projectile, which does an unheard of 1 whole damage. It's honestly quite overpowered, so I might need to nerf it later on, but yeah, that's the Slip 22. And with that said, that's all the new weapons in the game. I'm super happy with how they turned out, and I think they add a bunch more depth into the game, so let me know what you think. But next up, it was time for upgrades. With the help of my Discord, I gathered a big list of upgrades that I wanted to add, and got to work. First up, we had an array of upgrades that would increase the player's damage towards a specific type of slime. Firstly, the upgrade titled Antagonist would deal extra damage to passive type slimes. So normally my pistol does 1 damage, but with this upgrade I can attack this shield slime, which is a passive slime, and it will do 2 damage. This extra damage is only an increase of 1, which I know isn't much, but I think over time the extra DPS this can give will be quite noticeable. But moving on, we also had all the other counterparts for all the different types of slimes. Arrow does more damage against ranger slimes, Mace does more damage against brute slimes, Feather does more damage against assassin slimes, and Magic Hat does more damage against specialty slimes. Next up, I made another bullets upgrade in the game called Long Shot Bullets, which essentially makes bullets do more damage if the player is further away from enemies. So here you can see I normally do 1 damage, but if I shoot from afar with this upgrade, this number increases to 2 damage. And speaking of damage increasing upgrades, we have Desperation, which increases damage if the player is on low ammo. So as you can see, on weapons such as the machine gun, this upgrade can make a huge difference. And staying on track, next we have Pistol Powder, which simply increases the damage of the starter pistol from 1 to 2. And again, although it's a small increase, I think this upgrade can make a huge difference in the long run. But moving on, we have Blast Goggles, which makes the player immune from all explosion and AoE damage. Simple, but a pretty nice option in my opinion. Then we have Dash Bombs, which leave a bomb on the ground after the player dashes if they are in an enemy room. I really like this idea, and it's pretty nice to see your dashes potentially lead to some extra damage. Next up, we have Grappling Hook, which unfortunately isn't an actual functioning grappling hook, but does prevent the player from taking damage if they happen to fall into a pit. Then we have the Slime Pack, which simply increases the slime holding inventory for the player's capture gun, because if you didn't know, you can only capture a certain number of slimes before having to release them into the slime pin, so this upgrade just gives the player a bit more flexibility. And the final upgrade I add for now is the Swift Glove, which just decreases the reload time for all weapons, which can definitely end up making a noticeable difference. So yeah, that's all the upgrades I have for now, so let me know what you think. Anyways, that's all I have for this devlog, but before you go, I figured I would briefly address all the Unity drama that's been going on and how it affects Slimekeep. To put it simply, I'm not planning on switching engines for Slimekeep, though it really sucks to see the pricing changes made, which I'm sure you're all aware of by now. I have a huge amount of respect for people switching off from Unity, but I just don't think it makes sense for me. Maybe I will in the future, I don't know, I really do like Unity and I've been using it for ages now, but I'll just have to see. Anyways, that's all I have for now. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, consider subscribing and wishlisting Slimekeep on Steam, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.